All right, welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm excited about the next, I guess we have like 6 hours tonight, right? I could talk forever about this, even with a cold and all that stuff. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how to date and marry well. So I actually started teaching this about 23 years ago. It was a 12-week class on Song of Solomon, and I was teaching it every week with a bunch of singles between the ages of 20 and 60. And then in my second year or so of teaching it, I met this girl. And so our first 12 weeks of dating was taking this class, was walking through this class where I was teaching about it, and then her and I walking around a pond talking about what I just taught about. Talk about accountability. Whew, that was a rough one. There was our wedding day 21 years ago. So, and then when you do this, what follows after is this. So, the experiments, exactly. One of them is supposed to be coming tonight, so I think she's on her way. But my other one is working, so he'll be here tomorrow. But tonight, we're talking about how to date. What is dating, courtship, a bunch of those words that we throw around and we all have different meanings for. But tomorrow night, we're actually going to be looking at future planning, preparing, and protecting. And so the picture I have here is we're going to be talking about the wedding, the honeymoon, and great sex. Sounds weird to say that way, but when I paint a picture of what I want, it actually changes what I do today. And so I want to paint a picture tomorrow about why that's so important to protect, that determines a lot of what I do today, limits a lot of what I do today, gives me a vision for what I won't do today. And then the second piece for tomorrow night is actually conflict. The number one thing that we can actually learn and see prior to a wedding is how you handle conflict. And based on Gottman's research, he can predict with a 96% accuracy whether a couple will make it or not, based off watching one conflict. We can tell prior to a wedding the potential future of that. And so that's a really important place for us to start. So tonight, in your handouts there, you have blanks. A lot of what's in green underlined, that's going to be the blank. Just so if you like to keep track like that. If you don't, the answers are on there somewhere. If you just like to listen. But we're going to walk through a lot of content. And again, normally I spread this out over a long period of time. Tonight's going to be a fire hose as we think about your choices, and why this is important. So overall, 1 out of every 4 single adults base moral and ethical decisions on what feels right. Hey, welcome. There's handouts right there. Based off what feels right. And this is probably more true now than we've ever known. It's crazy how much our feelings guide so much. And it's important, like, it's crazy. They found what's actually at the end of the rainbow. It's Hooters. Just kidding. It's kind of scary to think about what's shaping our world and those kinds of things that shape our world and places that do. They just got sued, by the way, this past week from a transgender woman wanting to work there, but that's another whole subject. Our world's got issues, let's just say. 3 out of 4 never married adults contend that cohabitation is morally acceptable. Many of you, if you're not careful, will make choices that will actually compromise your future. Secular research shows this doesn't work. Yet yours and my rational mind would say, why would I jump into a lifelong commitment without testing it out? That seems rational. Yet all the data shows that actually the divorce rate increases. The chance of divorce actually increases. In reality, I'll say 3 times as many single adults are cohabitating today as 20 years ago. A majority do so in the effort to improve the chances, and also today to save money on rent. In reality, cohabitators are 48% greater chance of divorce. So this is why this is not a good idea. We don't want to be in that space. And tonight, at the end, we're going to see another reason why and how much it lowers the divorce rate, which is really interesting. Another one of the big, influences on most of our lives, men and women alike, is this crazy industry, the porn industry. Multi-billion-dollar industry is affecting everything when it comes to morality. Too many men are sucked into it, and too many women are as well, and watching it to determine what they think they should do or be We don't want that as our teacher. Yet, sad to say, for many, if not most, that is our teacher. That's not healthy intimacy. That is not godly. That is not pure. That is not beautiful. Yet that sucks so many in because it's so easy. It's so in private. Because we can go right here to these little suckers and just disappear. Which by the way, I call these a porn portal. So your parents were so loving when they gave you a porn portal. Like, that's maybe not a good idea. But yet that's our culture now, our world. It's just normal. And I would say, and I'd beg to offer, I don't want to be normal. I want to be outside of that norm on so many levels. If you think of moral integrity, 6 out of 10 single adults say that sometimes it is necessary to lie just to get by. We know some of these things. We see it around us. We see it at schools, Corban, other places as well. That it's just almost normal to say whatever I need to say to get to whatever I'm trying to get to. We're not living in truth, and we need to. And so part of what I want us to establish tonight too is what is capital T truth. That's a tough one at times. And so obviously Scripture is where we want to go to. Like even this word here, God created gender. But now that word has changed. That word is now, hey Miley. Hi. That's my daughter. She's amazing. God created gender, but yet that word has been taken, has been stolen. Because it now doesn't mean what it used to mean. Gender and sex was the same thing. Now sex is assigned at birth, and gender is whatever you want it to be. And it's really, we're lost in that sense. And so there's going to be a lot of conversation about that. You've even seen this probably, the genderbread person. That we have this spectrum of gender identity, gender expression, biological sex, who I'm attracted to or romantically attracted to, sexually attracted to. You could put yourself on that spectrum and kind of look at yourself and go, who am I? And the truth is you could put yourself anywhere on all that, yet God still designed you male or female. Now it's just a matter of what you do with that. Like I'm so thankful God designed me the way I am. I didn't make sense who I was until I met my wife in my late 20s. Because for most of my 20s, I thought something was wrong with me because I wasn't like all the other guys. I didn't like sports. I didn't like politics. I didn't like most anything that guys like to talk about. And I'm a shrink. That didn't help any. I have a degree in music. That didn't help any. So what's wrong with me? Well, I meet my wife. Well, she's this actually level-headed, in the legal field. Her version of counseling would be a 2x4 across the head. It's just like, get over it. And I'm like, that's why I'll deal with the counseling part and you go over there. We're different. And she actually made me make sense because we fit together so well. Why? Because she's still so the girl and I'm so the guy and God is so good. And it makes sense. And that's where a lot of times, especially when we're single, a lot of ourselves don't make sense. The Trinity even provides us with a great picture of intimate connecting. That's a weird place to go sometimes. But his sexual verbs are these. These are relating, loving, and connecting. The problem is you and I, even in our verbiage and what we talk, the way we talk, is this. Score, get some, and get it on, or stupid stuff like that. It's really sad the way we talk a lot of times. Or have you tapped that kind of mentality? It's so gross and so demeaning that actually even our language needs to probably be set on a table and looked at and sorted through and thought through. Is this actually honoring to other people, let alone to you, Lord? One of the questions that we ask, and one of the ones that is a first question to ask is, how far can I go? How far is too far? And actually, I'd say this is the wrong question. This treats erotic sexual interactions as selfish behavior, pushing the outer limits to manipulate the greatest sexual buzz possible. We want what we want. I want to take. I want to use you. And that's the design for disaster, if you will, versus actually I choose you and I want to serve you. Because think about marriage. If you think of why you and I date or look towards marriage, I find someone that I go, I think they can make me happy. And then God has this really cool sense of humor. And you go along and you finally get married, and then after the wedding you go, oh shoot, I'm trapped. as in it was like a bait and switch. Because now in marriage, you realize the whole calling of Scripture is me to serve my wife, and it's not about what she gives me. It's about what I am to do for her, and vice versa. But that's her side of it, not mine. We're very self-centered and selfish-oriented. If we're not careful, that's the bent, but we stay there. In marriage, we find I get to serve you the rest of my life. In our romantic interactions, how can we find sexual wholeness? It's going to be one of the questions today. And healthy intimacy in ways pleasing to God. How can I steward my partner's sexuality and develop his or her true potential to become all God wants them to be? And guys, I would say the stewardship of this is higher for you. You are meant to protect any of the women you're around. And I say that very emphatically. Yet what I hear from couples is she's the one having to constantly set the sexual boundaries and push back and say no. And men, I'd say stop it. Don't put that responsibility on her. You be the kind of man that she knows she can trust, because it's a test when you're dating, which, man, it changes marriage. Everything is different in marriage when it's, I've trusted you before, and yeah, I can trust you now, and I can lean into that, which is beautiful. How can I value, celebrate, and protect this other person who might be someone else's Adam or Eve, someone else's future husband or wife? Here's an even more interesting test of this. Could you go on a date with someone, spend a lot of time with them over a period of time, and decide, you know what, we're going to part ways? And then a few years later, they're actually at your wedding, celebrate you marrying someone else. Or you're at their wedding, celebrating them marrying someone else. Because what's the boundary that gets crossed where you couldn't do that? The sexual. The girl that I chased for 7 years, in that picture that I showed earlier, in the very background, there's this girl up on stage, and it's the girl I chased for 7 years. She was one of our bridesmaids in the wedding. I was at her wedding, I watched her get married, and it broke my heart, and I died as I knew I finally lost her. I was there the day she met her husband. The year 2000, the end of the world didn't happen. Well, it did for me because she met her husband, but I was there at her wedding, cried like a 2-year-old her whole entire wedding. And then her dad comes up to me after the wedding and says, it should have been you. Dude, that's not helpful. But then her husband walked up to me and said, thank you for preparing my wife for me. I was like, I didn't do it for you. It was for me. Because she had lost her mom when she was 14. And I had walked through all these years of her dealing with her mom's death and other stuff, but I was just a friend. We never crossed that line into touching or anything, but we spent 7 years of just friendship that was so cool for her to be at my wedding and celebrate Kelly and I getting married and her husband to be there. And it was just, talk about redemptive. Yet, for so many of us, we have a story or a past that actually that's not possible because of stuff we've done that honestly we probably shouldn't have done. And we're going to look at that and talk about that. Here's a good example of what's changed. Oh, how have we changed over time. In our morally relativistic culture, each person seems to define terms according to their own background, again, back to even the emotions, and to their own personal advantage with no truth to guide their hearts and actions. That's not what we want. So we actually need to look at what is God's sexual economy. What is that? Single adults are often confused about sexuality because they seldom communicate openly. We don't talk about this. So what we need is honest dialogue. Which is kind of what tonight's the start of, I hope, as you sit here and listen to some of this, and then what you do with it and the conversations that you have afterwards. Ephesians 4:25 says, therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully. Only through open dialogue and speaking the truth in love will single adults create the intimate and fulfilling sexual relating that we all desire. We've got to be able to do this. And this is an area that it's funny for me to teach about this stuff. And I have a class called Human Sexuality. I've taught for 20 years. When I was in college, I was a music major, and I had a piece of music that had the word breast in it. And they picked that song for me to sing in front of the jury, in front of all my professors. And I'm singing along, and I cannot say the word breast in front of my professors. I can't say the word breast in front. And he cut me off right before I had to say that word. I'm like, oh. And let's just say I've come a long ways, because now I get to talk about penis and vagina and all sorts of stuff all the time. But we need to actually be able to, because we've actually shamed something that shouldn't be shameful. It should be something that's protected. And that's going to be what we unpack even tomorrow. This verse here, I want you to promise, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right, until it pleases. I had this verse on my wall for years, that I wanted to be someone that didn't do this, because the temptation is to awaken love before it pleases. So if so many erotic sexual behaviors occurred due to inadequate planning and spur of the moment impulsiveness rather than intentional decision making. We need to be intentional. Like, listen to this clip.
You know, I think marriage is going to be really great.
Based on what?
Look at this. Jennifer wants a cake plate for our wedding. There's going to be cake.
Yeah, sorry to disappoint you, but there's not going to be any cake.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, there's not going to be any cake.
No, look, she signed up for a cake plate, so there's got to be cake.
We have a cake plate 12 years. No cake.
How can that be?
I don't know. We've also got a juicer, no juice, a waffle maker, no waffles, quesadilla maker. No, senor.
Well, that doesn't make any sense.
I know, welcome aboard.
No, look, I don't want to be trapped in a cakeless marriage.
Again, welcome aboard.
You and I have some interesting pictures of what marriage could or should be like. Some of us come from families where we have a really good example of what that looks like. Some of us do not. That's not what we would look to. Or maybe we have others in our life that we can look to. And that's great. We need them. We actually need to put ourselves in community where we do have people to look to, to look up to. I would even say for many of us, we need to have that kind of committee around us, that group of people that we've given permission to speak into our lives and actually say, yeah, no, that's not, I don't like what I'm seeing, or this is beautiful, proceed. And we've given them permission to say that versus sometimes what our friends are, which are just kind of yes men, yes women, and we don't want that. And so one of the places, though, I want us to spend a little bit of time is there is a created order. This is not in your notes here. This is something that I just really think is important for us to kind of to dive into. Is if you want to establish where we want to go even tomorrow, if you think of you and I today, we need to start with there's the design. And the design that starts in Genesis. The God created man. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And there was a beginning that actually had an order to it. And then one of the coolest things that I love about this beginning is actually where God put work. The Lord God took the man and put them in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Work was actually not post-sin. Work was actually pre-sin, which is important to put that in the right place. You are meant to work. You're meant to do what you do and do it well, whatever that is. If those of you that are athletes, you have two jobs. You're a student first, but you're an athlete. If you have a third job, God help you. You got a lot of work to do. But like we're supposed to work, yet for many in our culture especially, we have a very disordered relationship with work. And yes, part of the fall is work is going to be harder. We'll see that. But work was part of pre-sin. And then what's so fun is that God kind of plays this little game with Adam and basically says, Adam says, I'm lonely, and Adam, which I can't even picture that conversation. I've got perfect communion with you, God, and I'm actually telling God I need more? Like that that breaks my brain. And so God says, I'm going to play some game with you, and I'm going to have you name all the animals. And he's going, not like me, 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 because he's searching. And he doesn't find anyone like him. And then God creates woman. The Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make him a helper suitable for him. And in the making of woman, God began and started the institution that's not a social construct, as our culture talks about, called marriage. This is the beginning. This is why a man leaves his father and mother, is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. Now, it's sad to say that we have to emphasize a really important part of this part of Genesis. It is two sexually different people. That's what this is. The establishment in the beginning is two sexually different people coming together that complete, that have the ability to then what God commands, and that is to then multiply. Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. What's amazing is, wouldn't it be amazing to feel that, what no shame feels like? Because I don't think we will ever, this side of heaven, know what that's like because of our sin bentness. And so that's a loss that we all get to experience, which is sad, that will be redeemed one day in heaven. There's a really good book that actually I use in one of my classes called "Does the Bible Support Same-Sex Marriage?" President Sprinkle walks through 21 basically reasons why people say it does, and then he unpacks why that is not true, leaning back on a historically Christian view of marriage. And I love this book. Oh, yay. And then when that happens, this happens. There's that was our church picture for the church directory. It's about the best we could do. As they're growing up, so shows personality. Then they start getting older. Growing up, it's crazy. Adventures. Because the next piece of this puzzle, when it comes to God's design, is children, procreation. It's meant to be. The design is meant to be. That from the beginning, we come together as a couple, we make children. That's the design again. And we went to an F concert. Yay, adventures. We like road tripping. Here we are in Kentucky. Snow in the summer, love it. But then there's a problem. And if you have ever been around a child, ever met a child, have ever known a child, one of the things that comes with that is your extreme understanding of the disorder side of this, called sin. As in, we have this sin nature. And if you've met yourself. So let's just put it that way too. You know you've met yourself, and you know there's something not right. There's something off. There's something missing. And so what happens? Going back to Genesis 3. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they realized that they were naked. And so then they went to Kmart. So what in the world happened here? Who made this error? It's easy to go, it was Eve. And it actually was, but it wasn't. She didn't receive the instructions. Adam did. Adam was there, and he was silent. And this is really important in terms of some order pieces here. Because one of the first things that happens after this is actually one of the things that you and I all struggle with. And it's the blame game. We love to blame other people for everything. It's my mom and dad's fault. It's culture's fault. It's this person's fault. It's never mine. The dog ate the homework. It's always someone else's fault. The man said, the woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit for the tree and I ate it. We love blame, and that's unfortunate. And we're going to have to really be careful with that tendency to blame. But what happened with the fall? Well, there was actually, Adam and Eve had different consequences there. It was a helper fail for Eve and a leadership fail for Adam. That there is a design in how God created man and woman and husband and wife in that from the beginning. And also when it comes to the curse, comes to the fall, it comes to the consequences of sin. From this beginning point, man will actually struggle with and return to earth. And women will have pain in childbirth, and a second one that we tend to not talk a lot about, and struggle with man. Her desire will be to rule over him. Something we're seeing in society and culture at large as well. The man and woman are different on purpose. It's not a mistake. And the older I get, even the more I see the difference in how beautiful it is, as we're almost trying to blur the lines and get rid of the difference. That we have different roles, different places. That's beautiful how God made us so different. Psalms 139:13 says, "For you created my inmost being and knit me together in my mother's womb." There was from the beginning, a plan for you. No matter how you came into this world, no matter the story, no matter the surprise, there was a design there. There's an intentionality there. And then the next verse says, "And I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are beautiful. I know them full well." Again, a design here. But because of sin, we actually have something we have to do. Because of sin, I actually have an assignment. It's in Colossians 3:5. You and I, every one of us, without exception, have parts of us that actually I have to put to death. Put to death, therefore, whatever belongs to your earthly nature: sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desires, and greed, which is idolatry. And here's where we start seeing it when we talk about boy-girl relationships, actually any relationships, but definitely dating relationships, in our attractions and desires. How God designed me and wired me actually matters. You were created to desire. You were created to want to be close to other people in general, but also a person. To be in a marriage, to be a part of something. You were created that way, yet you and I have to figure out how to steward that. Galatians 5:19 says, "When you follow the desires of your sinful nature, here's what you get: sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger," Facebook posts that you probably shouldn't post, "selfish ambition, dissension, division, envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these." It's like he knew us or something, of what we're going to have this tendency toward. But the beautiful thing is 5:22, "But the Holy Spirit produces these kinds of fruits." This is the call, but it's our choice to respond: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. This is who I choose to be or not. My bent is the other way. And this is what plays out in attractions. You and I, if we were to line up the campus, we could eliminate most people in terms of just attraction, based off just a physical check. And I would dare say you would probably eliminate some of the best possible matches for you, partners for you in life, if you're not careful. That's not the only data point. It's a data point, but it's not the only data point. And I'd say it's actually lower on the list than we make it out to be. Even if you're same-sex attracted, bad data point. Why I look at Scripture, you can see, bad data point. I'm to surrender that. So how I live my life is to be, if I'm a Christ follower, surrendered to Christ, and he dictates what I do and what I don't do, which is really important. Galatians 5:24 says, "Those who belong to Christ Jesus have nailed the passions and desires of their sinful nature to the cross and crucified them there." We have instruction of what to do when things don't line up with his design, if you will, because we have a self-centered bent. This is a part of who we are, which is broken. Philippians 2:3, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves." The way we live matters. And we talk about that a lot. The way you live, the way I love matters. The problem is we've got love, and then love gets co-opted, and it's acceptance. And it's no. You know what love actually is? The simple definition of love is die for them. It's the cross. Anyone, not just a certain person. Someone so different than you. If you want to love them, you would be willing to die for them. That's a tough one. That's a hard call. And then you look at a spouse, a partner in life, a marriage partner. I want to protect them. I don't want to be someone that actually causes more harm. One of the areas that we cause a lot of harm is in the sexual. If we're not careful, this isn't the beautiful design God created. It's actually an area of brokenness, even in dating. And so I want to give you a framework to think about this. And this may be weird to think about it this way. I like it, and it helped me a lot. And it's these boxes, the boxes of sexuality. I think it's on your notes there. You have 3 boxes: sexuality, erotic sexual behaviors, and then true sex. So what does this mean? So I'm going to unpack each of these. The sexuality piece, the kind of the bigger box, it's what we experience relationally in our day-to-day interactions. That you and me in interacting just in general, yes, there are some of us that can try to hide whether I'm male or female. Yes, that can be done. Yes, some do it really well. But the truth is most, you show up as male or female and you're interacting with people in that arena, in that way. We actually tend to call it even things like non-sexual touch or just non-sexual stuff. I'm going to say no, it's all sexual in the sense of relating. Because I can use, without ever touching a person, I can use myself and who I am for good or evil. Just with my eyes, I can look at a person and hurt them, harm them, if I look them up and down and take them. It's terrifying, actually. Some of us, and I have a trauma class that I teach that really we unpack this in too much detail, but it's important. Some of us have never been touched in a harmful way, but we've been looked at in a harmful way, and we don't understand why it impacted us so much. It doesn't take touch to feel like something just got taken from me. And it's important to understand how important just the sexuality in general, you and I, all of our relating actually matters how I treat you and how we interact. Me sitting in a counseling office with someone and how I treat them, how I handle can I be a safe container and hold the stuff they're sharing with me well? Or am I someone that misuses it or uses it against them or gossips about that? This is all of life, all relationships, the sexuality box. Our sexuality propels each of us to genuine desire, or to desire genuine relational connection. We want to be known and for someone to know us. Some of us have a little more difficult stories where there's parts of us that don't want that because of things that have happened to us. I met this one young lady here at Corban years ago where she came to school here, had no horrible past, no bad things have happened, great family, great growing up, but she met someone and over a year period, this guy just nicked away at her soul. He just demeaned her and took her away, just broke her down to where when he finally pushed sexually, she gave in. And then she hated herself. And then he broke up with her like usually happens. And where was she when I met her? Looked like this broken person with this horrid past. And it's like, she didn't. She was destroyed by someone she trusted. Which is why some of us are really jaded about dating at all. And I get that. It's also why we don't need to be doing it alone. We do it in community where others can go, hey, I don't like what I see there. Like one of my favorite ones was Kelly. When I met her, we were in our late 20s. She owned her own house. She had a roommate. And her roommate was 1 inch above needing to be in a car seat. She's this cute little cheerleader. She's a spunky little girl. And one day she drove in, flew in we lived in Dallas, Texas area. She flew in, drove up to the house, and as she drove up to the house at 6 a.m., there was Kelly's car and my car sitting in front of the house. And she stormed in the house, came over to Kelly's bedroom door. Kelly, where are you? Kelly came to the door and she, what? Where's Corey? He's in the hospital. I just got home. Oh. That's a friend. When I was in seminary, there was this group of 6 guys I was so jealous of. They had a rule. No girls allowed in the house anywhere except the kitchen and living room. And when the next to last guy was leaving the house, he'd walk in the living room and go, out. Because I love you. I'm not going to ever let you be in a position where you're alone. Because I was always so jealous of these guys because they cared for each other enough to say, I'm not going to let you mess things up. We need those kind of people in our life. And that's why this bigger box, sexuality box, is so critical of how we do life with others. And what's sad is once you graduate from college, you will never have the potential for the extensive friendships that you have now. We talk about the Corban bubble and other things like that. It's like, it's actually not as bad as you think. It's something you're going to miss like crazy later on. Because it's going to be harder, it's not impossible, but harder to build that outside of this when you graduate. And my wife and I have lived in 4 states since we got married. And we've had to start over many times. And it's not easy, it's difficult. Unlike animals, human beings make choices to create erotic arousal, 20% body-driven, 80% mind-driven. You know this. There's so much more in my mind than in a physical act. 1 Peter 1 says, so think clearly and exercise self-control. Don't slip back into your old ways of doing evil. You didn't know any better. We need to be careful who we are and the choices we make, because my bent is towards selfish, what I can get or take. Sexuality describes who we are more than what we do, who we are. And so we're meant to be someone that stewards this. Had a student in Georgia where I used to teach, and she would have these wardrobe malfunctions very often, where she would be, oh, my breast fell out. We're like, you are a perpetrator. Like, you knew when you put those clothes on that day that you were going to have this little thing to get some guy all hot and bothered over you. Shame on you. She got so mad at me. It was awesome. I loved it. I was like, this is not okay. You're planning to do something that's actually intentionally harmful versus others that do things and don't intend to. That's a very different story, but this is who we are, how we live, and how we live in community and do life together. I believe we'd have stronger marriages if we had stronger single lives, which is, by the way, right now, in this stage of life, this needs to be exercised well. If you meet someone and all of a sudden you disappear from the planet because you're dating this person now, and all your other friends don't know where you are, no. Your friends need to kidnap you, tackle you, do something, hurt you, I don't know. Because you don't do that. I did that one time. I met a girl, and actually all my friends were female. I met a girl, so I cut off all my friends because they were girls, and I'm thinking that's the right thing to do. To then later, when that broke up, that was one of the darkest, loneliest times of my life because I had no friends. I had cut them off. And then when I finally let them back in, they're all like, yeah, we saw all the things wrong in this, but we didn't have permission to speak because you cut us off. We need community. And then we actually can go to a day of celebration, the wedding, with community. And man, is that amazing. I'll never forget my wedding. Hundreds of people there celebrating, Kelly and I getting married. And it was a reunion. I'm a missionary kid, grew up in Chile. It was a reunion of missionaries from all over the country that came to see my parents, see me. It was so incredible. It was a day of celebration, and that's actually what it's meant to be. It really is. So what is this middle box? Erotic sexual behaviors. This middle one, these are the actions, both physical and mental, that are romantic or erotically arousing, such as fantasy, sex talk, kissing, caressing. This is this middle ground between what I might do with everyone else and then the things I might do with a person I'm dating. And then that last one you saw, the true sex, you can guess, this is marriage. So what's in marriage? So the question is, in that middle box, kind of what goes there? And if you ever went to youth group and you heard some sermon about it, for a lot of us, if we did, it was, don't touch in the bikini areas and don't do this and don't do that. And it's a list of do's and don'ts. Actually, a lot less do's, a lot of don'ts. That was the teaching. Well, look at this. So the second box will be opened and enjoyed only by those who deliberately choose to enter into a coupling relationship, which we'll look at that in a minute. The activities that are considered romantic or arousing. And if you think of this progression from I just met you to then I had a wedding and we're in bed together and we're married, think like a ramp. As in, some people need to actually decrease this time frame and get married sooner than later, or probably break up because they've crossed lines, or they don't, like if it's too far away, like graduation is you're waiting till after. Everyone of us has different stories or different instructions, if you will. Look at this little video clip.
What you guys don't understand is, for us, kissing is as important as any part of it.
Yeah, right. Serious?
Oh, yeah. Everything you need to know is in that first kiss. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for us, kissing is pretty much like an opening act, you know? I mean, it's like the stand-up comedian you have to sit through before Pink Floyd comes out.
Yeah, and it's not that we don't like the comedian, it's just that that's not why we bought the ticket.
See, the problem is, though, after the concert's over, no matter how great the show was, you girls are always looking for the comedian again. You know, I mean, we're in the car, we're fighting traffic, basically just trying to stay awake.
Yeah, well, word of advice. Bring back the comedian. Otherwise, next time you're going to find yourself sitting at home listening to that album alone.
Are we still talking about sex?
Joey. We're different, and it's interesting is I don't understand why kissing is where it's in the timeline of this, why it is in the front. I actually kind of have a question mark there. Because you think about what that's like. I meet you, we start dating, and all of a sudden we're kissing. Great, I'm just turned your engines on, I rev them up, and then I'm supposed to walk away. Honestly, that just seems mean. But why? It's something cultural. It's something, it's very different than when you actually had to courtship what it used to be, where you had to take someone on a date with you, and it was chaperoned everything, which for some of us might be not a bad idea. But why is kissing up front there? Because maybe, just maybe, that is something that I would say, you know what, put that on the other end. Save that for later. Because this isn't the time to be evaluating whether, and I've heard this from too many people, whether I'm sexually compatible. If you're a male and a female, let me just tell you, you're sexually compatible. The parts fit just fine. That's all we need to know. Unless you're trying to look for just someone that you can have fun with. That's a different kind of marriage, by the way. And God help you. That's not probably the marriage you in the end want. If you want a best friend, a life journeyer, someone you can make hard decisions with, someone you can do life with. Because there are different kinds of people you could marry. You can marry the really fun one who's a wreck all the time. Or you can marry the person that's actually got stability and actually you can trust. I had this girl I dated in seminary where she had probably a few hundred sexual partners. And that was, I didn't care. I was like, I like you. And so we were dating. And what ended it for me was when I realized, I don't know if I could go to work and know you're okay because of your mental health. Like she was so suicidal at times. And it was like, I'm going to be a shrink over here. And I don't know. And so that was it. I was done, walked away. She was married like 2 months later. She just wanted to get married to a redhead. So she found another redhead. And so weird, some people. And if we're not careful, we find that person, that guy or girl that's going to be maybe sexually adventurous, but they don't have substance. We're missing something there. We have to be careful what we do here. So if you think of this last box, true sex, the most intimate of erotic sexual behaviors that are biblically reserved for marriage between a man and a woman. Look at Hebrews 13:4. Give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. God will surely judge people who are immoral and those who commit adultery. So at minimum, what does true sex include? What Scripture talks about. There's no verse that says, thou shalt not pet over or under thy clothes. Intercourse. And all other behaviors that are surrounding those general areas of the body. However, true sex may include other erotic sexual behaviors as well, especially those including genital expression. Now, here's what I would want every couple I ever talk to do. If we're not careful, we have a list of don'ts from our youth pastor or from mom and dad even. And I'm going, that's not going to be helpful. Why? They're not yours, they're theirs. I want you to start with Scripture, and Scripture has two really interesting things. One is intercourse is to remain for marriage. Does that mean anything goes prior? I'm getting excited. Oh, wait, it also says don't have even a hint of sexual immorality. Dang it. As in, I want you as a couple to decide what goes in that erotic sexual behavior box. What do we do prior to the wedding? How can we be wise as we steward this time we have? It might be a few months, might be a year or two. And if it's a year or two, you better steward this well. Or what you're doing is you're walking into marriage limping. And it will affect your whole marriage. And I don't want that for you. This box is to remain unopened until that most intimate stage, marriage. In God's sexual economy, true sex is at minimum defined as sexual intercourse. And one of the things that's really important is to actually look at even that, well, actually all these, but especially the erotic sexual behaviors, the stuff that we kind of tend to do as a couple dating, is that it's always incomplete. Everything we do is pointing towards something else. But here's a crazy thing. You know that masturbation is incomplete. It's kind of duh, we're missing another person. We understand that. And it is. Sex in marriage isn't actually what you might think it is either. It's also incomplete. We don't have sex and roll over and die because we're full. It's not the high that we think it is. If we're not careful, we treat it like a drug and we try to achieve some high. There's nothing this side of heaven that's actually going to take me to where I'm actually trying to go. So we need to put it in the proper place. It's actually supposed to be something I'm enjoying with my husband or my wife regularly and continuously for life, because that actually insulates the marriage. It protects the marriage. It has a purpose beyond just procreation, which we'll look at in a minute. And although true sex in marriage, I think I just said this, but completes the earthly metaphor and is to remain incomplete and dimly reflected mirror of the ultimate intimacy. Because what are we actually desiring? Lord, we're actually desiring you. I want to know you more. And that's a really critical picture that we actually need to kind of hang on to. That whatever I'm looking for in my job, I'm not going to find it there if I'm not careful and I put it as an idol. I'm not going to find it in a person. I'm not going to find it in a new car, that cool house, whatever that is. I'm not going to find it. And I need to be careful with that. That God has a design here. And so this sexuality, erotic sexual behaviors, true sex, what I want you to do is I want you to grow this true sex box in a conversation with this person where you say, these are the boundaries we want to keep because we want to save these for the wedding day and beyond, the wedding night and beyond. And one of the coolest things about God is he's the Redeemer. And when there's been there, bought the t-shirt, and this is nothing new, he can actually still redeem. I've worked with some couples that were living together before marriage, and I start premarital, and I'm like, move out. It's not about sex, like they've had sex, so they have this period of time where they don't have sex, wonderful, and then they finally do have sex. It's kind of business as usual. It's not like they forgot, but what is it about? It's about their heart. I want them to commit their heart to a different story and start anew. Like that's a really different story here. So I hope that makes sense, and we're going to come back to this in a minute, these three parts, through another lens in just a second. So how do I attract? It is not in finding the right person, but knowing what you will not settle less for. We're not supposed to settle, yet so many do. I have talked to way too many women who said they knew walking down the aisle that they were making the biggest mistake of their life. No, 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 no. Some of my absolute superstars are the women I've talked to who a week or two before the wedding have called their wedding off. And I mean, their dad hates them, everyone hates them because thousands of dollars has been spent and it can't get unspent. It's gone, it's lost. And I'm like, you are amazing. So I'm just proud of you for not following through with this when you just knew inside, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. It's a big commitment. Actually, at our wedding, delayed the wedding a little bit because I had a little panic attack right before the wedding. It's like, oh my gosh, her? I'm choosing Kelly? This is the only person I get to see naked? Like, this is it? I'm really choosing her? Like, and I remember this, in the middle of a complete chaos inside of me, just this piece of, I choose Kelly. All the unknown that comes next, all the unknown. I have no idea what's going to happen. And our first year of marriage was rough. I was walking with a cane when we met, and our first year of marriage, I was in and out of hospitals. I was fighting, trying to figure out I had autoimmune disease, have Crohn's, and just dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. Doctors told Kelly and I would never have a job, I would never work. And she's been a stay-at-home mom for over 16 years now, because God is amazing. I ride a Harley, I go backpacking, I do stuff I never thought I could do. Ski season is almost here, I cannot wait. But yet, my wife actually signed up to marry me, and in the 10 months we dated, I was in the hospital twice. She had signed up to marry me, assuming that she would work the rest of her life and take care of me. So I married well, she kind of didn't, but it's such a cool thing to think about that. You don't know what's around the corner, positive and negative. We've had some really dark seasons. When Miley was born, this little joy, I love her so much. I only wanted daughters, and I got 2 sons first, and then I got Miley, so yay. When she was born, I was bedridden for about 1.5 years. It was one of the hardest times of our life. We had 2 little toddlers. We lived in a house built in 1893, and that I was restoring, and I was a wreck. I was at 110 pounds just hanging on. And that was a rough season for us. And God is amazing, because when Kelly and I think back at that season, we don't have all these ill feelings, because her and I were tight. We were good, even when things were bad. And that's what you're preparing for. Whoever you're grabbing onto, it's your mind no matter what happens. So it matters. Lots of topics, areas we're going to go into in a minute, of how we fit. And so if you think of this picture here, a wife for Isaac. Oh, there's Miley. If you think of that story of the wife for Isaac, there's some really key points that are brought out there. Be of Abraham's family a believer. It matters their faith. It matters what they believe in. My wife and I came from 2 different denominations. So we met online, by the way, equallyyoked.com. That's where we met. She emailed me first. I make sure she always remembers that. She made the first move. Because I saw her profile, and I was like, and she's like, oh, that's cute, but it said Methodist. I'm like, what's a Methodist? I'm a Baptist. I'm not marrying a Methodist. I just totally dismissed her. And then she reached out, and we're talking, and when we were dating, we had 2 really big disagreements, and it was dogs inside the house or out. And I lose on that one. We have one in the house. And it was a theological difference. We didn't believe the same. And we had this standoff, like a 6-hour, our version of fighting is we're quiet and just stare at each other. All I'm thinking is, I'm out of here, I'm out of here, I'm out of here, I'm out of here, because I had never learned how to conflict. My parents did not teach me how. I didn't know how. So I'm panicking. Yet, in that time, she was going, is he going to let me have my own opinion, or do I just have to agree with him? And so it was the day after that she said, I love you for the first time. Because that was a test that I passed, yay. But I wanted out because I didn't know how. And it was, again, theological difference that we realized we actually believed the same, but we saw it different because I grew up, again, different denomination. Imagine the more differences you have, how difficult this is. I've seen couples doing premarital that are from 2 different cultures, like drastically different cultures. And I've watched some do amazing to merge their lives together and do life together. And I've seen others that I'm like, we meet and they walk out the door and they go separate ways. Because some are up for the task and some are not. It's difficult the more different we are besides just male-female. And it's beautiful, actually, in that difference, if you lean into the difference. And then another piece here is actually active faith. Willing to follow and then trust and seek God. Have a servant's heart. And then one of my favorite ones of this, the wife for Isaac, is happened to be beautiful. That was a bonus. We spend so much time on that one piece. Again, that attraction piece. Because here's what happened just for my wife and I. We went on our first date. And this is not a recommendation, by the way, guys, but we went to Cracker Barrel, and then I asked if she wanted to split something, because I'm cheap. And she said yes, and we split something, and we had a great dinner. But I just basically gave her my life story. Blah. I'm dying. Like, here's my story. Not a good idea. So we came back to her house. We played a board game with her roommate, and then we came to the front porch, and we shook hands. And I asked her if I could ask her out again to be nice. I didn't want to. And she said yes to be nice, and she did not want to. And then I went out with someone else the next night. And then a week later, we came to our second date, and we saw each other every day after that date. And 10 months later, we were married. And something happened. Something just clicked where it was like, this woman is amazing. Who she is amazing. What she stands for is amazing. Her work ethic is amazing. Everything about her is amazing. Oh, and by the way, and she happens to be beautiful. Like, what is it that actually is dictating who I am and what I see for myself or see as myself? If you think of a man, what should a man be? Name a purified oil, character, virtue, integrity. Who they are matters. What do they stand for? That it does not fade. And here's a really interesting one. This is kind of taken from the Song of Solomon. Other women desire him. That's a weird one. But think about it. How is he in relationship to others, just in general? I don't mean there's women are out chasing after him. That's just creepy in and of itself. But there's something about someone that actually has other friendships and relationships and is actually liked by those around, especially opposite sex friendships. And then in that, I choose you. You're mine, I'm yours. There's something beautiful about that. And then what about in a woman? Obey the authority over her. And so one of the questions is actually important here is, what about her roommates? How does she get along with roommates? Like, what do you think about dating a girl that is on their 77th roommate, and what do you think they're going to do with you? I'd say run. As in, it's important to ask those questions and find out about how they've handled roommates and roommate things. Are they hardworking? And again, this is another time where physical appearance is downplayed. And there's someone of great character. Who they are matters. How they live their life matters. There was this girl I met at a dance in Texas, right a few months before I met Kelly. And I remember meeting her. I saw her one time. I've never seen her again. But I got her number, and I had the guts to call. We would, at this dance place, I would always dance with the 60 plus and older, because they were actually not threatening. My age was scary. And so there's this one girl I got to know a little bit. Every time I called her, she was too busy to go have a date or go do something, because of her job and her ministries and her other ministries and this other thing she's serving at and this other thing she's serving at. And every time I called her, she just got hotter and hotter. Not because of her physical. I can't even remember what she looks like. It was because she had a life. She wasn't sitting around waiting for someone to show up and then she could start her life. She had a life that was... When I met my wife, she owned her own house. She had a great job. I came and kind of ruined all that. She actually had a really good life, which is interesting to think about. So the question for you then is, when are you ready? And one of the things we're going to look at in a minute is this one. When you have a silhouette in your mind. When you have a picture of what you actually will not settle less for. And then when you know the things you will not do. And when you are willing to be single. That you will not settle just for anyone. People that take my issues in marriage, pre-marriage class that I teach, tonight class here at Corban, most students come away and say, now my standards for who I marry is higher. I'm like, thanks, I did my job. I want it to be higher. It should eliminate most people around you, honestly. Because you're not looking for a posse, you're looking for one. And it needs to be that. When you have become the person. I can look at seasons of my life and see how God used seasons of living by myself to help grow me up and mature me. And they were hard times. But when you're willing to be single, and then as God's working on you, but if you're not careful, you have the mentality that, well, I need to fix this first, or you need to fix that. Well, good luck with that. Because you might actually have that, whatever that is, the rest of your life. Depression or some other thing you're dealing with. I've struggled with depression my whole life. And what's so crazy now, 21 years of marriage, my wife can recognize when I'm sinking into a depression, and she can do something about it, and I'm out of it within 20 minutes. She's learned how to love me. She's learned that if I'm just sitting there doing nothing, because I never sit and do nothing, something's wrong, and she's going to come in and go, hey, have you put ice on your gut? Have you, like, she checks in, she knows what to do, because usually I'm in a Crohn's flare-up. Something's going wrong. And she's learned to love me. How? By all these times where she didn't know what to do. And we learned together over 21 years, which is it's amazing to think about. The man has a name and the woman has a heart. So what is it that we're supposed to be doing? We need to get deep embers of love, morality, honesty, forgiveness, devotion, and share back and forth and let these grow red and hot. And there's something that happens when that happens that we can then prepare for when things are actually difficult. Every couple is actually going to find times where they look at each other and go, I really married you? I can't believe what was I thinking? It's a normal thought. It's called bad day. Go take a nap. Like, don't make big decisions here. You're going to have those days. My wife one time actually was in the laundry room and she was doing something in there, and I was in bed for the umpteenth day, and she's got 2 toddlers and an infant, and she actually had that flash of just, you know what? If I left Corey, no one would fault me, because things were really hard on her. Then she laughed and was like, that's stupid. Then I'd have to do it all by myself. But then she made the biggest mistake she could make. She walked around the corner and told me this. About killed me, because I couldn't do anything about it. I was stuck in bed. But then a few days later, she comes in and goes, okay, you've been laying here in bed watching Netflix. When have you watched a sermon? When have you watched anything that's actually good for you? And it's like, how dare you speak to me? Oh, crap, you're right. That's what you want, is someone who actually has permission, safety, security. Because one of the things that I think now when my wife speaks to me in ways that I don't like, as in anything that's negative, my first thought now is, I'm so thankful she feels safe enough to talk to me that way, to tell me that, because I talk to too many couples where one of them does not. They fear the repercussions if they were to bring something up. You do not want to be in that kind of relationship. So what do? You run as fast as you can to Jesus Christ and look to the right and left and see who is running at the same speed. And if they can keep up, invite them to join you. It's that simple in a sense. But if you're not careful, you're like Julia Roberts in, what's that movie now? Runaway Bride, who has no clue which kind of egg she likes. She doesn't know what she likes because she just likes whatever he likes. It's just she changes with the wind. No, someone who knows who they are is really, really beautiful and has a vision for themselves. And then it's so cool to watch how God merges a couple and then calls them in different directions. But God does not call a couple in a different direction. And think about that. God does not call a couple in different directions. One of them is wrong or both of them are wrong. We're in this together, and we do this together. Again, my wife and I have lived all across the country and interviewed even around the world. We do this together. A few years ago, we interviewed to move back near my family. My dad has Alzheimer's, dementia, and just turned 80 yesterday. And we really felt like it was time to move close to them. We went, interviewed, actually got 2 job offers near my family, and my wife and I looked at each other and we're like, God has us in Oregon. And we had such peace to have choice, but also to then go, no, this is where God has us, and we're thankful. And I can only wish that for you, to have peace in that. Because sometimes there's unknown. When we were looking to leave Georgia and we moved to Oregon, It was 2 years of 150 resumes in silence. All these jobs I'm qualified for, and it was silence. Like, God, what are you doing? And then when I finally get something, it was a no. Do I trust you? Well, you're going to be put through that test, individually, but also as a couple. Really important. Here's another interesting question. What if I fall in love with someone other than my mate? What if I do that? You get that friend like Kelly with the 2x4. Smack. Wake up. Nope. What do we need to do? We should immediately renew our minds with the teaching of God's Word about marital fidelity and commitment to our families, no matter what, for better or for worse. That's where we start. I come back to God's Word. It's not about what I feel. It's not about those emotions. Because the fact is, you spend time with someone and you click in any sort of way, affair is easy. Something new is easy because it gets me excited. That's easy. It's much more difficult to commit and stay committed because it's got less energy, if you will. But it actually takes choice. It takes intentionality. We should recognize the danger of our feelings and the possibility that we could fail or fall into sin if we continue to foster that relationship. Really, really important. So what if I meet someone? It needs to be, and this is the word I use with my clients all the time, it needs to be laughable. You just laugh your head off out loud even, that you'd even consider ruining what you have for some fling or something that will fade, that will actually not last. Don't. When a man truly loves a woman, he expresses his desire to be a loving friend who will care for her and her needs. He cannot remain apathetic to her concerns. It's a relationship. Caring for her, protecting her. And I'm saying this to you guys, how you live matters, and how you intentionally reach out, what you do and don't do and say and joke about even. That word desire is a really important word. He desires to see things from her point of view. He's inviting that into his life and vice versa. To see things different, which is actually makes life so much more rich. He longs to take her heart in his hands and care for her gently and tenderly. And that's my bride with 2 of our kids there. One's inside still. 2 boys. She calls Solomon in Song of Solomon, my beloved, 27 times. Song of Solomon portrays the man as the lover. He's the romantic one. He's tender in his approach, lavish in his praise, sensitive to his wife's needs. There's something about who he is that actually really, really, really paints a different picture than what we actually see around us oftentimes, where it's take, selfish. So to what are you attracted? So thinking of just that word attraction, kind of going back to that. Attraction is both permissible and desirable. This is not wrong. But there's 2 pieces of it. It's 2-tiered, the attraction piece. So maybe this is attractive. I don't know. Maybe not. Sex sells. Fortunately, we sell coffee. Yeah. So tier 1 is the physical. We know this one. This one's easy to talk about. We would line up the campus. You'd eliminate people. If you did a kind of a speed dating thing, it's amazing what we would do with that. But the second one is character and spirituality, who they are, the inside. Discernment, objectivity, virtue, integrity. This is why when you're in the dating stage or phase, it's important to actually be in different environments where you actually see them and you see your response. Like I remember even when Kelly and I were looking at the flowers, the choice of flowers for the wedding. She pretty much just had a meltdown with the choices. There's a lot of choices. I already had a notebook with the choices I wanted, so because I was the girl. Anyway, my response to her was to hold her and to make the choice to get her out of there as quick as possible. Instinctually. And it's like that was telling, because if I had been like, oh my gosh, really? Like, is she psycho? and I'm pulling away, this is not going to bode well for marriage. So my reaction tells me a lot about a future. And I was even surprised that when she reacted that way, I just leaned in and then took care of it. Because again, I'm the one that had the notebook with the songs that I wanted and the flowers and the colors and all that. And what I realized is when you meet the right person, actually none of that stuff matters. And it's such an amazing thing. And I still got to have the colors and the flowers and the music. And then I wrote the whole program to try to control my dad so he wouldn't embarrass me, but he still did. Yeah. How do you discern good character? So again, these things you do, behavior in stressful conditions. I want to see them in these kind of settings. How are they around mom? You know mom, or that sister or brother. When I took Kelly home to meet my parents, everything that could go wrong went wrong that weekend. My sister was a mess, and she's threatening suicide, and everything. My parents are rolling their eyes at me all the time because I'm saying something sarcastic because that's our spiritual gift in our family. And everything went wrong, and I'm looking at her afterwards going, I assume it's over now, right? She's like, that wasn't you. Who was that? Because who do we become when we get back near family? That's why I like multiple mountain ranges sometimes. But anyway, we need to see them in stressful conditions, but also reputation with others. Talk to others. What do they say? Organically talk, have conversations. Learn about who they are and how they interact with others. And you want to see them around kids and around senior citizens, around people that are different than them, and see them in these different environments. And it shows you how they handle things. Like, it would be actually really cool if you could have some crisis. I don't recommend trying to fabricate one, but you see what they're like under crisis before you decide to marry them. I had a professor in seminary that said that in his premarital counseling, when a couple came, he would ask them, have you ever had a fight? And a lot of couples, oh, no, we never fight. He's like, get out. You're in la la land. You're high as a kite. You've never had a fight. You see no wrong in them. Actually go live. You'll come down off this high. Then you'll see each other through true lenses, and then maybe we can talk about marriage. He's right. It's that beginning process, you're kind of high, literally high, as in the same centers in the brain that lights up with cocaine, lights up when you're in love, which is kind of cool and interesting. So don't decide to get married when you're high. Is good, either kind of high, anyway. And then the last one here, obedient to authority. And to me, this actually goes all across the board. Their pastor, police, parents, teacher, whoever it is, everyone. How do they respond? Because it tells you about their character. A person's attitude towards the police actually tells you a lot about them. Their attitude towards someone they disagree with tells you a lot about them. So it's like, or do this during a political season. Don't do it in a political season. You know? Find out a lot about someone during political season. So we've actually found that marital success and failure can supposedly be predicted. And I mentioned one in the beginning, one of the areas, which is conflict. Looking at conflict, we actually can see. But here's a 7-point checklist of faulty mate selection, how things can go wrong, if you will. First thing, the decisions made to get married is made too quickly. In some sense, what I actually recommend is you look at someone, you go, do you? And the other person says, yes, do you? And then get married. It should be that simple in a sense. It's not that simple. We spend this time, and we're going to look at the time in a minute, this time evaluating. So what is it that I'm evaluating that actually just determines whether this person is or is not a person I would want to link arms with? And we need to be careful and take our time. The older you are, it might actually be a shorter time. But the younger you are, I would say take your time. But it's actually juxtaposed with also where are your boundaries physically. Like if you're rushing in that area, you need to either break up or get married. Like stop playing games, stop playing around. The decisions, number 2, decisions made at too young of an age. And the stats are still holding, basically the divorce rate is higher early 20s versus mid to late 20s. The problem is right now the marriage, like when people get married, the average age is like 30 now, which is not a good thing. So I'm actually looking at this and kind of going, I'm pushing up against this. My oldest son is in college in Colorado. This is his first semester, first year. He met someone, they're dating. He's a homeschool kid, so we'll see how this works. He's got grades for the first time, and he's like, A's. I didn't know what these were like. It's kind of cool, and his mom's quite proud, and I'm proud of her. But dating, what is this like? And to me, in my mind, if she's the one, I'm fine with him getting married next summer. I hope he doesn't listen to this recording, but anyway. At the same time, it might be 4 years from now, but they have to decide this, and a lot of it depends on their choices, and especially the physical boundaries in terms of when that is. If you're dating at freshman year, that's harder. So the joke in our family has been that our kids can date their junior or senior year of college. We've said that all through high school. Because dating prior to that is actually playing games if you're not careful. So be careful when you think you should. That's again the cultural or social pressure. Versus, hey, I met this person. If you meet him in middle school, great. Probably not a good idea to start dating because getting married in high school is pretty rough. If you meet him in high school, also kind of rough. But like my middle son, he's dating someone or he's not dating. He likes a girl who's in high school. They're both in high school. And he's realizing, you know what, looking towards marriage. Because I'm telling him, basically, if you start dating now, I expect you to probably get married at 18 or 19. He's like, I want my 4 years of college. I'm like, well, you've got a decision to make. And so this is hard. And I'd say for them, it'd be better to separate for a while. And it's cool to watch how God brings us back together if that's meant to be. Or God opens up new doors and you move on with life and you're celebrating them as well. Number 3 here, one or both persons are too eager to be married. Excuse me. That's some of us. That was me for sure. I started college with, I'm going to get married. That's when I met Tanya. That first semester, first day of freshman seminar stuff, like that's where I met. And 7 years later was because I didn't get married in 4 years of college. Then I went to seminary, so the pool got smaller. And then 3 years of that, and then I graduated, and oh my gosh, how am I going to ever meet someone? And then I found them online. That's kind of crazy. But one or both maybe choosing a mate to please someone else. Oftentimes pushing from family. Or the experience base is too narrow. What does that mean? Not that you've dated a lot of people, but you need to have relationships. You need to have been around others. Because it actually helps you see, I really like that in a personality, and man, that drives me crazy. Just friendships. Again, I feel like if our single lives were stronger and healthier, same-sex and opposite-sex relationships, our marriages would be stronger. If we actually had exercised that muscle. The couple has unrealistic expectations, which, by the way, is all of us. What we picture in marriage is not going to be marriage. It's going to be different. So it's more of how we confront those and how we actually can talk through those and negotiate those. And then the 7th one is one or both maybe have unaddressed significant personality or behavior problems. Is that a deal breaker? No, but it can be. That there's some things we might need to get a handle on. But I've also seen the most beautiful things where someone marries him or her, that they become such an asset in their life. It's because of them that they grow, or because of them that they actually get stronger. It's because of them that they get better. Because there's something beautiful actually about marriage and what God designed in it. And so when we have this kind of journey or so once a person is attracted to someone, the dating process begins. But then that word dating is a problem actually. The goal of a great date is to build respect for one another. The great date's not centered around entertainment alone, but it's actually quality time. It's what we're doing with it. But it's also in a safe environment. This is what is really critical for us. We're setting the stage, if you will. For some of us, it's things like this. Speed dating, 6 minutes more to go. Or second date, perfect, time to say I love you. That would have been me. But I swiped right on every girl and still no matches. Yeah. Hey girl, feel my sweater. Know what it's made of? Boyfriend material. Benefits of dating me. You will be dating me. I could go on, but I think I have made my point. Or this is my favorite, one of my favorite, I guess, pictures of this whole journey when you try to get help with it.
I just asked if it was diet!
That's where I come in. Excuse me. By asking if it was diet, she took it as you trying to imply that you thought she was fat. Go get a red rose, get a regular Coke, tell her she's everything you never knew you always wanted. Any problems, give me a call. From Columbia Pictures.
Did you ever hear this guy they call the date doctor?
Every minute.
Really?
Absolutely.
I was told you were the guy that helps guys like me.
Nobody's perfect.
That's pathetic.
Pathetic. But one man
My name is Alex Hitchens. Call me Hitch.
can help you come close.
Let me give you my number. Do you have a pen?
Yes, I do.
He can show you the moves.
Elbows, 6 inches from the waist, 90-degree angles. This is home. You see somebody you know, I don't want none of this. Don't bite your lip. Stop biting your lip. None of this.
Okay, see, now that's what I need to be learning.
Don't ever do that again.
Can teach you the rules.
It's really necessary. Have you seen your back?
The guy with all the answers.
Whenever I'm around, I just can't get my stuff right. I saw that going differently in my mind.
Will have some questions of his own.
Is it me or is it just a little itchy in here?
Wow, are you okay? Well, I know what's happening.
You think that I'm in a stressful state because I'm trying to make a good impression?
No, I think you have food allergies.
Oh,
Will Smith,
it is not that serious.
Hitch, the cure for the common man.
8 out of 10 women believe that the first kiss will tell them everything that they need to know. The secret is to go 90% of the way and hold. Show me the magic. Show me the magic. Show me the magic! No, I said come 90 and then I come 10. You don't go the whole 100. You overzealous son of a...
Because a bad date can cost you time, money, and be an annoyance, but a bad courtship can cost you a piece of your soul. There's something about investing, and what I want to look at for a minute here is, if you think of evaluating someone, and what I'm going to basically show you is, I have a lot of people that would say this is not wise or not smart. I actually think it's very smart. And it's the idea of, from this book here, how to know if someone is worth pursuing in 2 dates or less. This was the first title of his book, Neil Clark Warren. That's the founder of eHarmony. Later on, he rebranded it Date or Soulmate, which I didn't like that name either. But I was like, 2 dates or less. How can you know in 2 dates or less? And why is that important? And his premise was, in the first 2 dates, you should be able to ask enough questions that doesn't get your heart linked to theirs and determine that this is not a good idea. Because a lot of you, maybe, a lot of your friends are dating for 2 months, 10 months, 2 years, and had no intention to marry. Stop it. It's not healthy. And here's the problem. You're not only depriving yourself of whatever God might have for you, but you're also preventing them from meeting the person that God might have for them if you're just playing games or playing around or it's comfortable. Part of dating, part of this process, is, are you the person that God could have in my life for life? It's an evaluation. And so what do I do with that? How do I figure that out? Well, on your handout there's these lists. So first one is this one, your must-have list, which I know sounds kind of cheesy. Earlier I mentioned about that silhouette. I don't mean fill in your silhouette. I don't mean like, I want her to have these measurements. Careful with that, punk. This is about who she is or who he is. And what you start doing, if you're dating someone right now, by the way, you can't fill out this list, because you're putting them in the lens and it's messed up. which, by the way, my wife found my list one time. That was really a fun conversation. And she had other girls' names in check marks. That was a more fun conversation. And then her name. Because this actually is really kind of wise, why it prevents a lot of heartache. If you know that their spirituality piece is so important to you, your bar goes higher for that and you don't play around. Or when it comes to their religious affiliation or education or sexual history. Excuse me. So here are the rules for formulating this list. You decide on which 10 of these 25 or more other things are non-negotiables. They're absolutes. So this is, to me, something that's done over a long period of time, and it's done very prayerfully and carefully. That you might put one on your list and you start realizing, you know what, that really isn't a deal breaker. That I actually don't, like one of mine was actually, I wanted someone who had never had a sip of alcohol. I've seen too much as a therapist, too much destruction because of alcohol. I have an uncle that died and no one even went to his funeral because of his alcoholism. He just had cut off everyone. I don't like it. I've never had a sip of it myself. Still don't feel like I'm old enough to. Mature enough is probably the better word. But I would be a great alcoholic. I'd go all the way. So I don't go there. And then I remember at one point I took that off my list because I was not meeting girls that actually had not done that. And it was so cool when I met Kelly sometime in the beginning there, realized she had never had any either, and how actually important that was. I didn't realize how important that was. And so it's stuff like that where I love the shopping list, but this is your first set of 10 questions. Your second 10 are the can't stands. What are the absolute no's? And if you think of this list, for some of you it would go, all of them. It's done. I got my 25. No, narrow it down. And what happens is it actually starts making you really kind of put this, I guess, higher on your priority list. And what starts happening then is you're meeting someone and you find out that they're a smoker or they tell that foul joke. And in your heart, you're just like, yeah, no, I'm not playing that game. Done. Walk away. Stop playing games. Too often we're getting into relationships and going for a long periods of time. And honestly, you know this is not the person that you should be hanging out with, doing life with, or even for that matter, marrying. But it gets harder when all of a sudden you've met their mom and you've met their sister and brother and you start getting connected. And then the worst part for some of us is if you date for a period of time, they're your best friend. Excuse me. Which means I got to break up with my best friend. That's like ripping a part of my soul out to try to move forward. Or even worse, is some of you, the only way you can break up with him or break up with her is to basically act like they're the worst person on the planet. Which by the way means you got bad taste, so don't go there. But you can't just say, you know what, we actually are going in different directions, and bless you and bless what God has for you. And we need to be able to have that respect for one another and part ways. And I've seen many couples who've done that, who've later come back together, which has been really cool. And others who've been able to celebrate when their former close best friend actually got married to someone else. And there's from there, his research and writing and stuff like that, he found these are actually some of the more significant similarities that are important. The things that are similar to us, or for us, spiritual harmony. What are you going to do Sunday morning? And actually, you need to talk about that kind of stuff. Your verbal intimacy, ability to be intimate, actually really, really, really critical. And by the way, you're not going to have much verbal intimacy if you're just playing with body parts prior to the wedding. If you're getting physically sexual, there's not, that decreases with the more of the other. It's all of these other areas of intimacy. We tend to be less social, less intellectually intimate, less emotionally intimate, lots of other areas. All these decrease when the physical grows prior to the wedding. And after the wedding, it's the opposite. If the physical isn't in the right place, all those other ones start shrinking. It's very interesting how that works. Level of energy, ambition, expectations about roles. I love it when I do a survey with the premarital couples about their roles. And then they do, what did my mom and dad do with all these different roles in the house? And then usually one of them is like, I'll do everything. It's like, oh, dream on. No, you won't. Because it's funny when you look at a husband and wife and they both have a job, she still tends to do 90-some% of the housework. It's interesting. Guys, challenge, hopefully challenge accepted. Don't let that be the case. So like how you build your life, talk about these kind of things. Your interests, personal habits. Now, here's the one that I would kind of go, I'd push back on the interest one a little bit. I've heard a lot of couples your age basically go, well, we can't get married because we don't like the same things. We're just too different. That's not what makes a marriage. My daughter a few months ago looked at Kelly and I both and she was like, how did you guys ever get married? You're so different. Yeah, like I'm a give me the snow, give me all that stuff. And my wife said indoor, give me a book and a fire. We're very different. I love concerts. She's now banned from going to concerts because she stayed on her phone last time the whole time. And so that's too expensive to just play on your phone. So her and I are going to go to, was it Ann Wilson? 2 weeks, yeah. And then Toby Mac in a few weeks. But these things become, you've got to really evaluate what are those things that are valuable to you in terms of similarities. One of the dreams I had was to actually be married to someone that could be up here doing this with me. You notice what's not here? I got her up with me one time teaching this class, and she'd whisper stuff to me, and as soon as we had a break, she left, and she's like, no, thank you. She does not like being in the spotlight. That's fine. I'll take it. I'll take her any day over whatever dream I could have. I don't know what it would be like. But I looked at Les and Leslie Parrott, who are both teachers and speakers, and they do stuff together, and that's kind of was my picture of what I wanted. I didn't get that. I got better, I think, because I got a best friend to do life with, which is really important. So let me walk through this now. This is going to go connect back to the sexuality, erotic sexual behaviors, and the true sex in a minute here. If you think of this bridge right here, which looks familiar, I think. We're going to look at going across this bridge. So what's this side and what's this side? This side over here is connecting in friendship. The side over here is covenanting in marriage. You and I want to bring, hopefully just one person, from this side to this side. And if you want more, you're on the wrong place. That's the goal. We want to move from single to married. We want to take this one person across this bridge, and we'll look at what those steps are in a minute. And we want that. Yay, she's so awesome. What is marriage? What's the goal of marriage? You need to actually have a theology of marriage. You need to have a belief about what is marriage, why marriage. You have an imprint from your family. You have what you caught from your family, what maybe was taught, but what do you believe about this sacrament, I believe, of marriage, the sacredness of marriage? It's actually something to be protected, the beauty and purpose of marriage. It's really important. Hebrews 13:4, give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. God will surely judge people who are immoral and those who commit adultery. Proverbs 18:22, the man who finds a wife finds treasure, and he receives favor from the Lord. Proverbs 21, it's better to live alone in the corner of an attic than with a quarrelsome wife in a lovely home. It matters who you marry. It's why this seminar, Love, Sex, Dating, and Marriage, I titled it actually How to Date and Marry Well, because bless God help you if you don't marry well. If you marry someone like this, it's going to be a rough life. And I know couples like that. I deal with them a lot in counseling. It's a rough life. And you're to remain faithful to them too. A worthy wife is a crown for her husband, but a disgraceful woman is like cancer in his bones. Don't team up with those who are unbelievers, unequally yoked. How can righteousness be a partner with wickedness? How can light live with darkness? Ephesians 5, husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her. That is our command, is to actually, in choosing this woman, is I am to serve her the rest of my life. I'm to make her a better person the rest of my life. That is the call. Or don't get married. Matthew 19, Haven't you read Scripture? Jesus replied, they record that from the beginning God made them male and female. That reminder again. And he said, this explains why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. Since they are no longer two but one, let no one split apart what God has joined together. It's meant to be a one-shot deal. It's meant to be for life, no matter what comes. And that's the hard part. That really is the hard part. And that's what covenanting is. To covenant, to come together and make this commitment for life that I choose to not break. Yay, I love that picture. What are the purposes? I mentioned the first one earlier. The purposes of this, again, the picture of marriage. Why marriage? One of the first reasons we come together, male and female, it's the only combination that works to do what? Kids, little rugrats, little mini-me's, procreation. But then there's more. There's actually other good parts. I think we've got this out of order, and we've actually put pleasure at the top. I think we've actually really messed this up. Actually, that bottom one's not showing up. It's actually perseverance at the bottom. Our culture has done a good job of talking about the pleasure of sex, which is why a lot of kids are doing it, because they don't realize that every time a penis and a vagina come together, it's meant to make a baby. That's the design. Every time. Every single time. Thank God it doesn't. We'd have a lot of kids. But it's meant to make a baby. And so for us to be surprised when we had sex that there's a baby is kind of actually us being stupid. That shouldn't be a surprise. That should be duh. But we're not living that way. We've actually put procreation down on the list, and it's just kind of this. Actually, procreation is more like another STD. That's kind of sick. Women don't rush into a crisis pregnancy center going, do I have this deadly disease that could kill me? An STD. Instead, it's, am I pregnant? Because for so many women, actually, in men it's different. For women, they're more fragile, as in one getting certain STDs just once, and you could be sterile the rest of your life. You may never have children. And the amount of women who have chlamydia and other diseases early, because of high school even, when I was just being stupid, didn't mean anything, it's terrifying. It's actually affecting so many. And we need to be able to talk about that and say, hey, boundary. Sex is for one thing, and it's actually to make a baby. Oh, but there's others too, but they're secondary to the first. That they're actually also protection. What's the protection? That actually when you and I are together over and over and over, just you and I, it's a protection from temptation outside. Because I choose you over and over. Because what does it happen in an orgasm for him and for her? In an orgasm, I'm bonded to that person I'm with. There's a connection with that person. I'm more forgiving. I'm more patient. I'm more attuned to them. I actually forget bad things that have happened. It's interesting how that high release of oxytocin, how it erases memories. It's why some women have 2 kids. Like, why would anyone go through the pain once and ever do it again? Because of the brain gets washed. And it's kind of funny, because God's not dumb. His design is perfect. In my human sexuality class, I talk about the neuroscience of sex, and it's such a beautiful thing because it points to a beautiful designer that we have a lot to learn about as to why are we made that way? Because we're meant to actually connect in that way over and over with one person for life, because that bond becomes something that I see as even sacred. And yes, I know that a couple can have that and still have an affair. And that bad things can happen. That's on the person that had the affair. They need to be dealt with, and that's another whole subject. But right now we have this journey from connecting to covenanting. So what's this middle piece? It's coupling. So this was a good committee that put these words together, a good pastor. And it was Michael Seitzma. But coupling, we're going to go from connecting to coupling to covenanting. And Michael Seitzma and Michael Todd Wilson that built this little model, they looked at dating and courtship are like, these words mean so many different things. There's so many. Let's make up a whole new vocabulary. I love this. Soul Virgin, he said, was one who continuously seeks to value, celebrate, and protect God's design for sexuality, body, soul, and spirit in oneself and others. We talk about virginity as a physical thing. It's way more than that in their design here. Yes, it's physical. But also, if you've lost your virginity already, there's still this heart piece that I think is more important in the end. Honestly, if you're dating and you want to have sex, and in some senses like have sex, whatever, you're going to deal with the consequences. It's your heart that's actually the more, I would say, fragile piece. The sexual part is easy. It's also why we need to put some boundaries there. It's your heart that actually you're going to deal with it the rest of your life. Do I trust you? Do you trust me? It's really important. So this coupling stage, going across this bridge, is important. This is the type of friendship we have with most people, the friendship one. Same sex and opposite sex. Also any two people that have gone on any number of dates. So if you think of the first step going across this, that you've maybe had a couple of dates with. It's the connecting. It's not on there. I'll put that on there in a second. Sexuality may be fully enjoyed in these relationships. Again, the friendship, all people. However, there's no place for any erotic sexual behaviors. That makes sense. Friends, you don't do all these other things with, just like you don't have any other experience besides true sex with someone that you're married to. Only a small number in a lifetime go across this bridge. These are relationships who are likely been on a number of dates, and includes the idea of exclusivity, romance, and a dedication to the process. What's the process? Are you a person that I would choose to do life with? All of life, good, bad, and ugly. Marriage, covenant with. Erotic sexual behaviors are negotiated by the couple based on their unique relationship. Most couples don't. Instead, someone pushes and the other one decides to push back or decides to give in or freezes. And we don't want freeze. That's actually scary. And so here's the model from Michael Todd Wilson and Doug Rosenau. Connecting, coupling, covenanting, friendship, considering, confirming, committing. And we'll talk through those three words in a minute. And so you have this sexuality here, that we live with all people, the things we do when we're dating or courting, and then the things that we only do in marriage. So if you think of this process, considering, it's still a connecting friendship. We're still friends, but now we're taking that step to see, are you someone that I would consider? I'm prayerfully considering. The initial stage here most often begins while still as a connecting relationship. Because once they define the relationship as a coupling, they dedicate themselves to the process of prayerfully considering. This hopefully is also done in community, not done in isolation as well. Talking to friends. Sometimes, though, this next stage, so if you think of the middle one here, confirming, this is the engaged to be engaged. There's a lot of people on campus. The ring's not been bought yet, but you're engaged. Everyone else knows you're engaged. Just stop acting like you're not, that kind of thing. This is, okay, we've made that step, and we're just waiting on putting a ring on it. A couple seeks premarital counseling and sets aside time for full disclosure of each other's past in this stage. And we'll come back to that in some more detail in a minute. Allows a couple of time to work through the real issues. So the premarital counseling piece, this is actually pre-engagement, by the way. One of the things I recommend for couples is, yes, premarital counseling is a great idea, but I would back it up just a step. Go do that kind of talking with someone in depth prior to even getting engaged, because your brain is a lot more free to receive criticism versus when I've paid for that ring and I've actually put a ring on it. It's just true. I really want to be sure. My wife and I started premarital counseling prior to us getting engaged. I had already bought the ring. She didn't know that, but that process of those conversations were really important to start. Are we really going to do this thing? Which is really important. And again, the full disclosure. What is this full disclosure here? It's actually the airing of your dirty laundry. This is a highly debated piece of this that's important to talk about. Should I tell them about all my past experiences, sexual experiences? The answer is yes. I don't want anyone that can walk into my wife's life and tell her something I haven't told her. I know I didn't tell details, but she knows highlights enough that no one could go surprise her or vice versa. And here's the even best part. If you have a story, a lot of story to tell, and you tell that and they can't forgive you for what you've done with someone else, they are not going to be a forgiving spouse, and I'd say run. This is actually a really important test. You tell him, you tell her, you maybe don't speak for a day or two, you have to grieve, and then you come back and go, yes or no, I still choose you. Okay, wonderful. Excuse me. And then the committing stage is, now we're in engagement. Yay. And this needs to be short. Stop playing around. Get married. Once you're engaged, get married. Stop it. Go watch the Dick Van Dyke Show. That old show. He meets her in the beginning of the show, and she's a dancer, and he's in the military, and she's like, you want to get married? And she says, yes. And how's next weekend? I like that. We make this way too expensive and way too crazy in this country, so careful with that. And that's often why we push the marriage off, because we want to plan this extravagant wedding. By the way, the cost of your wedding doesn't determine the future. Like the more expensive, the better marriage. It doesn't. That's not true at all. We need a short engagement. Here's my bride and I. Yay. What's crazy is how sick I was in all those pictures. My mind goes to all sorts of memories. And what is the marriage piece? The covenant relationship of marriage occurs with the official I do. In the presence of loved ones who pledge to hold the new husband and wife accountable. This isn't just that I pledge to her, I pledge to him. This, to me, a critical part of the marriage ceremony is them, the people present, pledging to hold them accountable. It's the same as baptism. To me, these are very similar. In baptism, I profess to you that I'm a Christ follower. And then you, being present, profess to hold me accountable to my commitment that I'm making publicly being a Christ follower. We mimic that in marriage. At least we should. Or the wedding, which is what we should. We'll talk about that tomorrow. In this covenant relationship, true sex may be enjoyed without guilt and with God's full blessing. The problem is, again, we'll talk about this more tomorrow, it's amazing when you've been told it's all bad, 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 and now you've got to flip a switch and you're married now. Sorry, that doesn't work that way. Our bodies don't work that way, our minds don't work that way, our hearts don't work that way. So we got some work to do. And I work with a lot of couples, and the ones I work with tend to be even like sexual abuse history. How do we enter marriage carefully to protect her? It's some of my favorite. I remember being on the Zoom call after this one couple got married. They got married and they didn't have intercourse for 6 months or so. As I told him, I had coached him, basically it's she says when. And then I got on the Zoom call and she was like, we did it. It was so cute. Oh, it was so cute. And then a few months later, she texted me and she's like, we're pregnant. I was like, it works, yay. And it's such a cool thing because it's supposed to be that way. And it is also grief when we've tried and tried and tried and we've not been able to have a child. And that I know many, too many, that are in that place. That it's not fair, that they can't conceive. And they've done everything right. Why aren't, I don't know. And there's a lot of questions like that that's important to think about. And so that's this model of, instead of using the word dating, courtship, I like this considering, confirming, committing. But let me go back to dating and courtship for a second. Here's some words to think about with these. So dating and courtship, what is the difference? Dating is observation. Courtship is depth. So in a dating relationship, I'm not doing much with you. There's actually no strings attached. Where courtship is vulnerability. I'm actually getting to know you just a little bit in dating, but I'm getting to know you a lot more in a courtship, if you will. Dating has a time allotment. There's a time limit even. And courtship is more purposeful. We're sharing more of our story. We're getting deeper. We're staying up till 4 a.m. We're having long conversations. Dating is an end in itself, where courtship is actually moving to something. As in, I don't want you just dating most of the time. Because what it is it tends to be literally nothing. Versus you've got a lot of friends, and I know we're at Corban, and if you have lunch together, then you're married or something, and it's crazy, but you need to be dating. Actually, I would say, if you're going to use the word dating here, date a lot of people. But you're not touching, and you're not sharing deep, dark secrets, and you're not changing your Facebook status. Like, it's nothing, if you will. It's friends. It's very different than I'd say, I think I want to actually take that first step across the bridge with you. That's a different stage. Now, courtship tends to be what some of us know of, and that's where we actually have a chaperone come with us. And there's some of our families had that mentality, and you have to ask like 27 people before you can go and take every little step. And can I kiss them yet? Ask all the people. Like, there's a lot of different versions of courtship. But courtship tends to be more of a, hey, I'm moving towards marriage. That's why I like these other words from Doug Rosenau and Michael Todd Wilson. Or dating is actually marketing and courtship is the close. I like that one. Or dating is one or more people and courtship is exclusive. See, to me, this is impossible. This is just insanity. Because in my mind, if you go on one date, we're now getting married. It's probably not a good idea to think that way. But some of us act that way. One date means everyone else is off the table. No, you barely know their name. You don't even know their last name. Come on. So careful with that. But as soon as I label it something, if you will, so considering to confirming, okay, now I've actually taken dating off the table here. Now I'm actually, this is courtship. I'm trying to evaluate whether you're someone that I would see myself marrying and vice versa. So 3 things required from this. Time, again, a no strings attached policy, and respect. Respect. Boundaries. I want to care for you, and I want to make sure that we're being wise with our decisions. What is the no strings attached policy? We're not in anything that's exclusive. Again, it's a concept that we don't have in our culture right now. Because you meet someone and you go on that first date, we somehow are locked in for something, which is actually not always healthy. The desirable things to expect during this dating, considering, confirming. Desire to listen and growing with growing ease. Growing feelings of endearment. Lack of pressure. If the more you spend time together, there's more pressure, walk away. Maybe talk about it, but in the end might need to walk away. This should not be this like pressure sales, if you will. Open acknowledgement of the relationship and us identity. That we're in this together, we're doing this together, and we're doing life together. 3 questions to ask. What about your regular quiet time? What's your relationship with God like? How do you relate to the Bible? Oh, I go to Corban. It's now a textbook. Okay, we got some work to do. We need to really look at that and evaluate that. Are they involved in a Christian church? As in, are they involved in a Bible teaching church? I would say that's one of the most critical things. Where do they receive their instruction? Like in meeting my wife, I realized that the church I was going to, their sermons were like a millimeter deep. They were nice lessons, but they were not actually growing me. And she changed how I saw sermons and saw teaching and preaching like completely. Because her bar was so high. She'd grown up with her dad as her pastor her whole life. And incredible pastor and preacher. And this is number 3, desire to pursue the same type of spiritual life and ministry. Not career, but we're heading on similar tracks. You want to be a business person and they want to be a missionary to China. Okay, probably not going to work. We need to look at where are we being called to and does this fit together? Really, really important. There's this process, though, and so I did this with Kelly. Book of Romance from Tommy Nelson. He says this: I strongly encourage every young man who is in a dating relationship to say to a young woman after 4 or 5 dates this. And so I did this. My wife and I were a few dates into our relationship, and we had just done this class, whatever day it was, and we're walking around this pond outside there in Dallas, Texas. And I, from the class, said, okay, I'm going to say these words. And so I said to her, I don't know if you're the kind of person God has for me to marry, but I want you to know that you're the type of woman I would enjoy spending my life with. I like being with you, and I'm open to seeing if this relationship goes somewhere. If you want to back out of our dating relationship right now, then that's all right. You owe me nothing but honesty. Always give her an out. And that's, again, once physical stuff starts happening, it's hard to have an out. And then here's another one, though. If you discover after a few dates that a young woman is not the type of person that you want to spend your life with, tell her as gently as possible, preferably not over text. Be honest about your feelings and forthright about your intentions. Stop playing games. If you believe this is a person that you're not moving in that direction with, call it, move on, stop it. Don't play games. Because again, a lot of couples are just, this is nice, it's comfortable. We kind of like the same things. We like the same sports team. Woohoo. Stop it. Be careful with that. Be careful with those games. Be intentional here. And when you decide to commit, mark your courtship. Don't just slide into it. We are, you and I, just you and I. We're not in this wondering where I'm at kind of thing. You have a 30-year mortgage, a 5-year car lease, and a lifetime gym membership, but you're afraid of commitment? Yeah, that's too many men and women these days. It's crazy. So in this stage, if you will, in this time period, what are we doing? I've said this word a few times. We're evaluating. It's wisdom. I don't know. I don't know what tomorrow holds. Wisdom to properly evaluate their character, standard of moral righteousness and personality. What you see is what you get. If you're not careful, you see, you know what? He's a diamond in the rough. I think I could work with this guy. I think I could make him into something pretty awesome. No. If this was the guy you married and he was this way the rest of your life, yes or no? None of us will be, but don't create a project. Because I actually pretty much guarantee you it probably won't go well. Because neither of us, guys or girls, like to be told what to do. You're marrying them as they are. And then you're going through life with whatever happens. Car wreck that actually ends up putting one of you in bed. Okay, you deal with that. Infertility, you deal with that. Job loss, you deal with that. Like, whatever comes, we don't have a say with some of those things. Is there consistency and ease? Do not force this. And this is a weird word to even say with this, but it should be easy and negotiable. If you're fighting all the time, what do you think your marriage is going to be like? If you like fighting all the time, get married and have fun. You're crazy. But you get what you get. It should be easy. It should be comfortable. I had this one couple where they actually broke up every week. Every week, we did premarital for like a year, and it was like, oh my gosh. She had grown up in another country and had been sexually abused her whole life. And then they met at a small Christian college in Mississippi, they started dating, and they jumped into bed together. And they decided, whoa, we don't want that. And so they realized that they couldn't even hold hands. Because, man, she was ready and she was jumping. And so every week they broke up. Every week they broke up. Until one day I walked in and I was so frustrated with these stupid little kids. And I looked at them and I was like, okay, we're going to do some really dumb, cheesy exercise. It's called the speaker-listener technique. It's so you say something and I'm going to parrot it back. So what did they say? You say it word for word. I didn't say that. Actually, yes, you did. Actually, it's not what I meant. Because what happens when I speak? You hear the 10 or 20 words I say, but you don't hear the 4,000 emotions and other words behind it. So things were being missed. I had them go back and forth for about an hour, and they never broke up again. Because they weren't just listening to each other. As she's speaking, he's preparing his word, and he's slamming there. And as he was talking, she's ready, and and they were both intense. And they got married a few years later, and they've been in ministry for, gosh, it's been about 20 years now. So cool. It should be easy, and if it's not, get help or walk away, run. You need to have the same standard of moral uprightness. What is it we are or are not going to do? Some of you have a lot more looser moral uprightness. Okay, have fun. It's different than mine. There's consequences, you'll deal with those. Had a client just yesterday, not a Christian. And he literally described this guy in his 60s looking at dating. And he's like, I don't know, because I had said something about no sex before marriage. I was like, yeah, I don't know about that. He goes, but I know every time I do, it lasts for a year or two and then it ends. It's like, it's funny how that works. But when you put the cart before the horse, you get what you get, like versus commitment. And then we're all in, it changes everything. And he's like, yeah, I never thought about that. It's like, moron. But it was funny to listen to a guy actually wrestle with this who's not a Christian going, there's something there. Yeah, there is. And it's so much more safe, healthy, strong, protects you and them versus playing with whoever you can play with kind of thing, which is sad. Communication. There needs to be sensitivity. You're not the same if you haven't figured that out yet. We see the world different. We feel the world different. We react to the world different. There needs to be honesty, talk. Speak up and tell them how you feel. That's a hard one for some of us. Always give her an out. Back to that statement I said earlier. My wife and I, we were dating. If you've heard of the 40 Days of Purpose, right? That little Rick Warren book. We were doing that during this time we were dating. So day 38, my wife, my sweet Kelly, goes, can I tell you something? This isn't working for me. I'm like, what? She goes, well, we read the little passage and then we ask the question and then you answer it and I need some time to think about it. I'm like, oh. Because she's an internal processor and I speak for a living. So I talk out loud everything I'm thinking. And it took her 38 days to finally tell me, this ain't working for me. Because when I ask her a question even now, I can expect an answer next Thursday. Because she's an internal processor. So frustrating. So then who's the gauge of when we can talk about things? Her. I'm ready all the time. Actually, I'm ready now, but then I forget. So she has to bring it up later. But if I try to push her to talk early and she's not ready, it's not going to go well. Or she's going to break down. Or she's going to shut down. And we're all wired different. Each of us. And there's going to be different combinations of what that looks like. And that's important. There needs to be patience. Be careful not to share too much, too fast, too soon. But here's a cool thing of how God works. One of my friends, he went from having never kissed a girl to making a baby one night in college. Him and this other girl were talking one night, and they went way too fast, too close, too soon, and had his first kiss that night. And then they went a little further, and they found out they were pregnant. They were in college when I went to college in Arkansas. And they found they're pregnant. They're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Like, let's give this child up for adoption. And they found out that there's this missionary couple in Africa that had been trying to adopt and trying to adopt and trying to adopt, but no one wanted to adopt a kid to somebody that's going to take the kid out of the country. Who better than two missionary kids from Africa? Because they were both missionary kids from Africa. They were able to give this child to that family who got to take that child and raise that child because God is perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. But man, we panic, we freak out, and we look at that as a mistake. Oh no, yeah, but no, because God is perfect. We have to remember that. We need also be patient in this area. Hands, be careful, they bind. Don't kiss until you're willing to be responsible for their heart. And I think that's a really important boundary to think about. Don't start making out and start kissing when you're not willing to protect this, willing to guard this. Too much of a good thing builds resentment. We don't want that. That's why this process and this time actually leads to either I want to spend more time with you, or actually very telling, I really don't want to spend more time with you. I like our times together, or I kind of dread them, or I want more, or like that's part of why this time is important, and stages, and go through finals together at least. That's a good one that's revealing. Patience, number 4, is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. Careful for praying for patience. It's dangerous. Think about, again, these stages here, this middle, what you should feel in the confirming, committing stage. Excitement. Time should not dwindle. That's a really good test. Going and hanging out with people, just in general, and you realize that everyone else walked away and you and this one person are still talking. That's a great test. It's a great way to see versus trying to be on the hunt, which is kind of creepy in and of itself anyway. There should be desire. There should be life. There's something growing here, something beautiful happening here. And it's just the beginning of a story. Really, really important. From the Song of Solomon here, she's motivated by his loving protection. And she's motivated by her strong passion. We tend to ignore that sometimes. But she actually has that in these pictures. She's motivated by his sexual practices, boundaries. Do not stir or awaken love until it pleases. There's a commitment to something greater versus just what can I get today or get now or take now is really important. True sexual pleasure hinges on commitment and trust.
Ross kissed me.
No! Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! It's unbelievable! Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! Okay, alright, we want to hear everything. Monica, get the wine and unplug the phone. Rachel, does this end well or do we need to get tissues? Oh, it ended very well. Oh, do not start without me! Do not start without me! Okay, alright, let's hear about the kiss. Was it like a soft brush against her lips, or was it like a, I gotta have you now kind of thing?
Well, at first it was really intense, and then, oh God, and then we just sort of sunk into it.
Oh, so, okay, was he holding you, or was his hands like on your back?
No, actually, first they started out on my waist, and then they slid up, and then they were in my hair.
Oh.
And then I kissed her.
Tongue?
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, we're a little different, which is interesting to think about. Crazy. Key things to do in this, we're discovering again. And I mentioned it already, airing of the dirt linens once. And this is an important step in that. If you think of when this should happen, you want it to happen sooner than later. But do you want to be sharing this with everyone that you go out on a date with? No, you want to share this with only the ones that are going across this bridge that you would be considering marrying. So hopefully once, maybe twice, but it needs to happen once. What happens after that? We mentioned that. It's, what if they can't forgive? You need to turn and run. This is that test. If you do not want, or do you want to marry an unforgiving person? We do not want that. This is actually really, really important that you can, and again, I would say this needs to be earlier than later. I had a client one time where it was premarital counseling. We were a few weeks from the wedding, and for some reason, I just turned to him and I said, "You're a virgin, right?" No idea why I said that. And he goes, "No." And she just what? You told me you were. He goes, actually, they've been dating for 2 years. Actually, when we were dating, you asked, and I wasn't about to tell you the truth, so I just kind of hum-hawed around it, and then you just assumed, and we're weeks from the wedding. She just broke down right there, bawling. So I looked at the guy and I said, get out. I'll deal with you later. Kicked him out of the room. And I looked at her, and because I knew that something had to happen right here, right now. They're probably still going to get married. Why? Because the flowers have been purchased. Sad to say. And I was like, you're not leaving my office until you make a decision today. Yes or no? Do you choose him? Do you forgive him? Yes or no? And she's crying, and she's just, a blubbering mess. And it's like, I saw her finally calm down, and she's like, I hate him right now. Yeah, I still choose him. And she walked into that wedding a few weeks later, very different. And actually, I'd say stronger. Because she, even though she was angry and she had to still deal with all that, and that was still going to take a while, she wasn't walking in going, am I making the biggest mistake of my life? That conversation was so critical. To me, it was actually a very God-ordained time for that to happen the way it did, and for all those cars to fall. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, I got a crying girl in front of me. Yikes. Like, I just leaned into what I thought was right in the moment, and it was beautiful to see. This is really, really important early on, not when we're a week or two from the wedding or now we're married. Learn to resolve conflict. We're going to talk about that tomorrow night a lot. Resolve conflicts fairly and with love. This is very telling as to how. Beware of non-communicative men and women. Do you want to marry that? That's a struggle. That's a problem. It's a difficulty. Beware of explosive men and women. And then talking, listening are two musts. This is so important for us to be able to go back and forth, and we're sharing. For women, do not press for commitment, but do press for communication. Be careful with that dance, with what that looks like. Because I would say there's a tension there. There's a pull that rubber band between 2 points. There's a tension, and it's going to be held there. But there needs to be this dialogue, and it's ongoing. But be careful. And there should be an excitement regarding the future. The more we spend time together, we're more and more excited about the future, no matter what happens, no matter what comes. That's really, really important. Now, what have you heard about the divorce rate? What is the divorce rate? Those that haven't heard from me. 50%? Because I want to show you where it has never, ever, ever, ever been 50%. That what you hear and what you even hear preached and talked about was a made-up statistic of a projection that has never come true. Praise Jesus. But you and I believe it because we know so many people that have. So Shanti Feldon, Harvard researcher, Christian, lives in Atlanta, wrote this book, The Good News About Marriage. And she, there's this graph you've probably seen, 50% divorce rate. At one point I remember even speaking and saying in a class, and it's higher among Christians, it's like 60%. And we would believe it. It's never been that, thank goodness. So you think of a room like this, half of you are going to end up divorced. That's kind of depressing. I actually think we have scared your generation into not marrying by having these false statistics that actually scare you into not getting married. One common denominator among marriages that survive versus those that failed is hope. You need actually hope that marriage can work. So I'm going to give you some today. There are many different factors that led to either outcome, but underneath it all was the bottom line. Did the couple have a sense of hope or a sense of futility? So a couple's futile feeling that we aren't going to make it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy if we're not careful. Is their probably mindset going to help or hurt their chances of staying together? Versus I'm all in. And what she found in her book, Fact 1, is the prevalence of divorce has never been 50%. The 72% of those who have ever been married are still married to their first spouse. And around 10% are widowed. She accounts for that. An educated guess is that around 25% of first marriages may have ended because of divorce. And so if you take all that into consideration, she comes up with basically a 32% at the highest. But there are some things that you and I can do that actually lower that from 30%, which is really cool. But the bottom line here is that the vast majority of people will not end up divorced. That needs to be really, 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 really good news. But you know, one of the factors, just one piece of the pie that influences you not getting divorced, college education. College education alone drops the divorce rate to around 1 in 6, 17%. Why? Hopefully it's because you can think for yourself a little better. You can think deeply. You can actually, if you're getting a good education, you're actually thinking for yourself. That's different than an education where you're being told what to think or believe. What are the other ones? I've kind of hinted at those as well. Decision to not live together before marriage drops the divorce rate. Church attendance. And then being in a community of well-supported friends and mentors. Most people that come to counseling don't have people around them, even though they have people around them. They don't have community. They don't have people they trust. They don't have mentors. They don't have, so they go pay someone to keep it quiet. So we need people in our life. Some people have identified marriage as the problem, and because they have this fear about marriage, which is some of us, they do things that increase their risk. Again, living together is one of those. I'm so afraid of it, I'm going to do these things that sound smart, but it actually increases my risk, living together. We need to be careful of that. So what is kind of the call for us, as we kind of wrap up even tonight, is church. Your involvement in a local church. I hope every one of you right now is involved in a local church. I wish we could require it if you're breathing and you're at Corban. You and I don't do well when we're told what to do. If you don't get involved in one now, you're probably not going to get involved in one when you graduate. And what's really sad to me was when I was in seminary, I was working in the electrician side of campus and working with all these pastors to be, and some of them would talk about how they hadn't been to church in a year or two, and they were training to be future pastors. It made me sick. Like, this is not okay. As in, right now, I hope that you're practicing what you want to do when you are in the future. Get involved in a local church. They need you, even if it's for a year or a semester. Serve in the 1-year-olds. Help with the choir. Be a problem like I was in the kids' choir and just make it more fun for everybody. Are you in the Bible beyond your homework? That's a hard one when you've got homework in the Bible. But what's your relationship with God's Word? Do you go to it for answers? Is it your go-to place to go to ask questions? Or do you go to Wikipedia? Just kidding. Where do you go? Say no to cohabitation. Don't live together before marriage. And actually, your first marriage, you have a lot less chance. And the coolest thing is, actually, even second marriages aren't as dire as we used to say. We used to say that, if you second marriage is like 80, 90% divorce rate. Not true at all. I love her research and what she's revealed with that. It's not true. Yes, those can be solid and can last. We need to have confidence in marriage itself. But here's another interesting one from her research. Getting married after 24. Does that mean don't get married before 24? No, but it actually means careful with that prefrontal cortex. You don't know what you don't know. And think about this. There's two pieces of this. It's kind of a struggle, if you will. There's a lot of people waiting to get married, and then they get married, but they've kind of already built their life, and they have a really hard time merging lives with someone else. And there's others that they built their life together from 18, 19, 20, 21. It's a very different story. A lot of the people that are getting married later, prenups are probably a good idea, which is sad to say. And sad to say the results don't tend to be good either. Versus, I built this with you. I built everything with you. And there's more of an increase of people getting married later, and they're actually scared of their wealth. They're protecting stuff, and it's like becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy of they almost shoot at the foot before they get married. So there's something about getting married younger, but just know that you don't know what you don't know. But if you're waiting until you're ready, you're never going to be ready. Just like you're never going to be ready to have a kid. They change your life. But guess what? You get a 9-month warning. And then it's so funny to watch couples who all of a sudden go, oh, I have a teenager. It's like, yes, you had a 13-year warning. Holy smokes, are you guys crazy or what? You had plenty of time to prepare, but crazy. And then the one we saw a minute ago, community of supportive friends and mentors. Do you have these people in your life? My wife and I moved a lot. That's the most imperative thing to build. Who do you put around you? Who are those people speaking into your life? Who are those people lifting you up when you're struggling? I remember I had a motorcycle wreck years ago with my oldest son was on the back. And I'm in the hospital, laying in the hospital bed. I had all these puncture wounds on the side and cut in my face. And I remember I got so mad at one point because I looked at my line of motorcycle guys that all had taken care of my wife and kids and everything. And I was like, why does it take times like this to realize that you're loved? And I was so mad. I was like, why is now that I have to realize that I've got these guys that love me and would do anything for me? It kind of stinks that it takes sometimes tragedy or hard times. Luckily, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And then the last one here, college education. I think that to me is very interesting because we're a homeschool family. Around our community, most don't seem to want to go to college or even pushing to go to college. There's such a disdain for college. And I can agree, depending on where you go. I'm biased a little. But yeah, it matters the preparation for something. And it matters who you're training, who's training you, but also the stock you put in who's training you. Like my mom even reminds me, she's like 76 or 77, somewhere up there. And she reminds me of way back when she was in college. She's like, I didn't listen to those dumb professors and what they cared about or what they valued. I was there to get my education. It's like, man, I wish people could think that way now. In a sense, it's like, I'm training to be that, whatever that is. That's just one piece of the puzzle. Because hopefully right now you have people in your life that are helping train other parts of you. Just nights like tonight. In your heart. And who you worship. Why you worship who you worship. Your priorities. What you do with your finances. All of those things. And that's why this is important. This picture of I'm going to move someone from connecting to my best friend. It's one that seminary professor would ask couples, he would say, who's your best friend? And if they go, oh, Joe over here, he goes, well, go marry him then. It's like, this needs to be your best friend. The person you confide in most, not, I'm going to go run tell my best friends over here. Careful with that. This needs to be someone that I trust with everything. And gosh, I'm going to also trust them with my body. Yeah, you better choose carefully, choose wisely, choose intentionally, and choose in community to where people are coming to celebrate. In Georgia, where I used to teach, I was known as the counselor that broke people up. And I was like, I never did that. But I'd have couples come for premarital counseling, and they'd walk out separate directions. And I never told anyone they should or shouldn't get married. I just held the mirror up and paint the picture of where they're at. And they make a choice. What was crazy is the amount of couples I talked to who go, oh yeah, we didn't want to come to you because we were afraid you were going to break us up. It's like, if I can break you up, you're going to get eaten alive by the world. So that scares me for you and your future. Because you need some tests. My wife and I went to a 10-week class on premarriage. We did premarital counseling with multiple pastors. We met with a financial advisor. We did the Prepare and Rich. We read about 10 books together. Why? Because I'm going to practice what I preach. And it's scary to marry someone. First person I was engaged to years earlier, she said no to premarital counseling, and I broke up with her that night. It's like, you're going to not want to do what I want to do for a living? I think, see ya, peace out. Because that's kind of crazy. Because I want to take someone from this side over here through considering, confirming, committing, and it just be a smooth, in the end, a smooth ride, no matter what storm might come. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. There's this quote from Stephen Covey I love. He says, if you don't make a conscious effort to visualize who you are and what you want in life, then you empower other people and circumstances, including addictions, to shape you and your life by default. That you choose what guides you. Like, I look at even my timeline, I got married at 28. If I had met Kelly earlier, I don't know where I would be in so many ways, because it's kind of neat to see. I was in my middle of my doctoral program. I probably wouldn't have gone to school any further if we had met earlier. Because to me, marriage is so important. I would not have wanted to do that. I see some who, it's because of who they married that they push them to finish that degree or to continue on. And we each have a different story, and they're all unique, and actually that's what it's supposed to be. So careful that you're not trying to do what someone else is doing. Yours is going to be different, and it's going to be actually, hopefully, beautiful. Now, don't do it alone either. And tomorrow, we're going to go into painting a picture. What does a wedding look like? What does a great honeymoon look like? That's a tough one sometimes. What does great sex look like? That's a scary one sometimes. And then, how do we conflict well? What can we learn and know to watch for? Because I might need to learn it. Like, that was for me a big one. I did not know how to fight. I never saw my parents have an argument in front of me in my whole growing up years. I was in seminary and grad school when I saw my parents fight for the first time, and I cried. I'd never seen it. So in my mind, literally, anger equals sin. To fight equals sin, and I had to undo that because you cannot be in a relationship and not have conflict. So how you conflict is important, and to do it well. Let me pray for us. Dear God, thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for each one here. Thank you for their lives, all that you have before them. Thank you for the future relationships they have, the people, the lives that they're going to touch. Thank you for their marriage partners that you're preparing for each one. Lord, thank you for the story that's being written even right now. I just pray for each person here to protect one another, protect the other person they're in a relationship with if they are, and to be very, very vigilant, desiring to honor you, Lord. I thank you that you made us for you, but also in that you made us to have this best friend that we get to do life with, and how beautiful that is, Lord, and how tainted it is in our culture and society. I pray that we can redeem that in our own lives and our own choices, and even through just surrendering to you and asking for forgiveness, how beautiful you are at restoring. Thank you for that, Lord. And I pray for amazing lives ahead, no matter what storms come, as they make a difference in the world for Jesus Christ, Lord. Thank you so much for each person here, and see y'all tomorrow. Amen. Thank you for coming.